Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard one-on-one, how he's approaching all of the changes with public safety in Indianapolis and the deficit we face, plus his top priority for 2013 and whether or not he plans on seeking a higher office. That and a look ahead at the Indiana General Assembly is coming up on this edition of Indianapolis This Week.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard is looking ahead to a new year, one that has some big hurdles, including toppling the deficit of the Public Safety Department. RTV6 and Indianapolis This Week anchor Todd Connor sat down with the mayor at the Hilbert Circle Theater for a one-on-one interview.
Happy holidays, first of all, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Likewise.
We're inside the Hilbert Circle Theater. The Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra is back and where they should be, many people would say. Could you imagine the city without an orchestra?
No, actually, they've been here ever since I can remember. I think all of us. It's always been here. They struggled here recently, and it looks like they're getting in the right direction. So I appreciate the fact. A lot of hard work went into that by a lot of people, and I hope the city understands that. But I also hope that to have an amenity like the symphony in the city, it has to be supported, and so we want to make sure people continue to support the symphony.
Public Safety Director Troy Riggs has been on the job for only a short time now. What are your expectations of him?
I expect a lot, the reforms to continue. I expect a really broad outlook on things. You know, with his background, I think he's going to be able to bring that to us. I want him to really think innovatively. I want him to think forward, if you know what I mean by that. That's really what I'm looking for. I tell people, with the budget that we've had, here recently, that the public safety, criminal justice folks have not been as efficient as other people have been. I believe that. And we've asked everybody else to be really efficient, but we tend to give them the money and say, your public safety, go forth. But I want to make sure they're as efficient as possible too, and I think he's going to bring that level of detail to all of it.
You just recently promoted Chief Rick Hite to that position. What are his marching orders?
Well, I always tell the police, and I have for 5 years now, that reduce and prevent violent crime. That is really the focus. And Troy Riggs comes in and he says that plus something else, and also reduce the fear of it. I think that's a good point too. So Chief Hite has those marching orders from both of us, and that's really what he's supposed to be doing. He has been tireless. I hope everybody realizes that. He's been everywhere, talking to a lot of community groups. He's been at crime scenes. I think he's tightened up a lot of partnerships throughout the city. I think we have good partnerships with neighborhood groups and folks like the 10-Point Coalition that really help reduce the crime. The murder rate in the last couple of years has been below 100, which you got to go back 20+ years to see that. Looks like it's going to be again this year, which I'm appreciative of. I wish it was lower still, but still it's going to be below where it's been for 20 years. How do
you reduce the fear of crime?
Well, a lot of that is talking to folks, to be honest with you. We had a rash of burglaries up on the north side, no question about that. We had to take some time and talk to the neighborhoods and give them the, what they needed to do for defensive measures, if you will. And then we also went to work on the offensive side and found out who was doing it and eventually got them. And it was two groups that were doing it. And as soon as those two groups were arrested, it pretty much stopped. So, but we had to message to them, we had to talk to them all the time that this is what's happening, and they understood it. Here, protect yourself this way while we're going to go do this. And that, I think, talking to folks is huge because, a lot of the fear comes from not knowing, and we want people to know. And so I want the police out there talking to folks all the time.
Police and firefighters, they're going to get their raises after all this year, not till later, or later in 2013, I should say. All of a sudden, money that you didn't think the city had, now they have it. How did you work things out?
Actually, we thought we might be able to do it later in the year. We didn't think we could do it early on because it just depends. Budgets are really kind of dynamic, but we always thought we might be able to do it later on. But to do that, we had to open up the contract, and everybody said, "Oh no, we're not getting the raises," which could have been true. But we think we've worked it out to a point where we can start it in the half year, if you will. I didn't like what we did to begin with, but we felt like we had to do it. But I don't want people to forget either. Back in 7, 8, 9, we gave them 3%, 4%, and 5% back to back to back. Those last 2 years, deep into the recession. when other people across the country were getting laid off. So, we got to remember that too, and I hope they remember that also. A lot of folks didn't think they were going to get those raises, but I'm the one personally that said no, they're going to get them, they deserve them, they're going to get them. Now we're at a certain point where budget's getting a little bit tighter. The recession is still affecting everybody. Income tax is not where we expected it to be. Well, I guess where we expected it to be, but it's still on the decline, downward trend right now. Hopefully it'll increase next year. Property tax base, because of the recession again, is a little bit less, and so you have to do what you have to do, and we don't want to, we haven't laid anybody out. We don't intend to do that sort of thing whatsoever, but you have to do what you have to do to keep all the force together.
Money's tight everywhere, but you found another $10 million to keep the Pacers around for another year to try to work out a longer-term agreement with them. Are you worried they may decide to skip town?
Well, you're always worried about that sort of thing. It's hard to explain sometimes to people. The Colts don't run Lucas Oil Stadium, but the Pacers run Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and for 10 years they did it on their dime. The benefit to the CIB and the city for them running our building on their dime was immense, and people forget that. They think that the money was to them, but it was really to running the building, because at a certain point they said, we can't run the building anymore without some help, because it's your building, we're running it for you. And so that's what that was, and we'll have to see what it is going forward. We needed this one more year to see, because we have to see what the CIB budget is going to be. To be frank with you, you can take one point in time and say, gee, it looks healthy, but I know that in 4 to 5 years it's not healthy, because I know what the debts are coming due, if you will, and it's not going to be healthy. So we have to really look at that and see how we can better position ourselves. And there are a couple taxes on the table, and frankly, we're going to have to look at those to see if we need to do those to move forward. The
car rentals and sports tickets,
and the user fee, essentially. The
okay. Is there going to be a pushback on that? Are you already starting to feel that?
There might be, but sometimes people forget that all of this downtown and surrounding was built by essentially visitor taxes and food and beverage and that sort of thing. So people visiting, if you will. User taxes, I guess, but and some of the out of counties. Don't get me wrong. So before I was the mayor, that deal was struck, and I think it was been beneficial to everybody, because we have to keep all of this going on. And if you lose one of the pieces, you're always afraid that the next piece leaves, and the next piece leaves, and the next piece leaves. And it's really the combination, like I say, of the sports and the arts that are downtown right now that really create a very vibrant life, and that businesses are looking for, and frankly, individuals are looking for, families are looking for. We want to make sure that continues.
And after the break, what the mayor's top priority is in this new year, and does the mayor ever want to seek a higher office? Downtown Indianapolis is calm compared to what it felt like 1 year ago, a city getting ready to host the biggest sporting event in the nation, the Super Bowl. It's something Mayor Greg Ballard is proud of as we continue our conversation with the mayor.
It's been almost a year since you had the Super Bowl to worry about. Do you have the Super Bowl blues right now with nothing to plan for?
No, I wouldn't say that, because there's so much still good feeling about the Super Bowl. I tell people all the time, I never saw so many happy people in one place. They really enjoyed it. I was in the village quite a bit, and everybody seemed happy. And the out-of-towners kept saying, gee, I never knew about all this. This is terrific. And I heard many people from the area say, gee, I never saw my city like this. This is great. And they now have a renewed emphasis, renewed respect for their own city, frankly. And I think that's been tremendous. It was a fun time in the village, no question. In the last weekend, I couldn't go down there. It was so packed. I couldn't even move because pictures and things like that. But I'm just glad so many people had such a good time, and the city really came together.
It's probably hard to determine exactly how that will pay back over the years, but now that it's been close to a year since, are you starting to feel the snowball rolling down the hill, gain momentum as far as payback in terms of conventions or companies may looking to come here, or is that still down the road, or has it happened already? It's
actually happening. The Visit Indy folks would tell you that the pipeline for conventions is much stronger than it's ever been as a result of the Super Bowl. People looked at the city differently, and so we had so many different people out. The stat that I remember from the Super Bowl, one of them was that 65% of the people that come into the Super Bowl are decision makers for their organization. So they're coming in and seeing all of this and say, well, ooh, maybe when we do our convention, we'll look at this. And so we have 2 to 3 times the pipeline. Doesn't mean we're going to get them all, clearly, but certainly the people who are looking at Indianapolis as a result of the Super Bowl is much more than in the past. And all that means is jobs downtown. That's what it is. Some people will use Lucas Oil, some people will use the convention center, some people will use Bankers Life Fieldhouse, Georgia Street, or whatever it might be. So that whole package, like I talked about earlier, has to stay together.
You recently made a big announcement, getting a lot of national attention on moving the fleet of city cars, vehicles to clean energy. What made you do that, and now?
Well, I've been studying that for a long time now, honestly, and you know, even before I was the mayor, it was when I was studying it, it was worrying me. But I didn't think, you know, military folks like I went to Gulf War. That's okay. If you have to do it, you have to do it, and we understand that. If the quality of life of America, the economic security of America mandates that, not a problem.
What you're saying is we've gone to war for oil.
Absolutely, we've gone to war for oil. There's no question that my war, Gulf War, was about oil. But you can draw the timeline back all you want, but essentially we're still trying to stabilize the Middle East. And why, right? So if I didn't think the city could save money, and I didn't think the technology was there, I wouldn't have made the move that I made. But very recently, within the last few months, I decided, one, the city can save money. We had the analysis to do it, obviously. And the other piece, the major piece on a national level, is the technology is there now. That's very important. So we can start moving off of this, and I hope people really do understand how passionate I am about this. We can start moving off of this, of the oil-based transportation model that has been choking our country for a long time now. I mean, I don't know, like I say, people can read the white paper and see all the data that's behind this decision, and I hope they do. But I'm suggesting to everybody right now that we wouldn't be doing this at this point in time unless I thought the technology was there, that we could start moving off of it. And I'm hoping Indianapolis becomes the model. We're getting a lot of national attention as we speak, but I want to be the model and tell other cities and states that they can do it, and then kind of have a grassroots effort to move toward these EVs, to these plug-in hybrids, and to take their bigger trucks to compressed natural gas or liquid natural gas, whatever it might be, so that we reduce our dependence on this imported oil. Drilling more here won't do it because of the world spot price for oil. That doesn't really do anything because the spot price will still stay up in price because China, India, and everybody else is still building out. So somebody will be sending still hundreds of billions of dollars to these countries who want to do us harm. There has to be an alternative.
And finally, your top priority for 2013?
Well, my top priority for the next 3 years is really, just like I've always said, it's mass transit and education. Those are the two things I'm mostly concerned about. We've been moving forward on those, and we got a little stumbling block. I'm hoping right now, this year, 2013, is the year that the state legislature understands how important this is to the city on mass transit, because to me, this is talent attraction. This is about getting those young entrepreneurs into the city, because they move to the city now. When I grew up, we moved to the job. Now they move to the city. They're looking for a quality of life in a city, and we have to provide that quality of life for them if they're going to come here. That's what this is about to me, largely talent attraction. So that's very important to us, and sometimes people don't see that. They just see the expense part. To me, this is an investment. This is an investment. Transit-oriented development will increase the property tax base around the stops. The income tax base will be dramatically increased if we can bring that talent into the city to create these jobs here and expand their businesses here. It's very, very important. So I really do see this as an investment. I'm not throwing that out as just a term. I really see this as an investment.
Mayor, thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, starting tomorrow, the Indiana General Assembly will come together once again, this time with a Republican supermajority. We're sitting down with our political insiders to preview the session ahead of us. Joining us are two of our political insiders, Abdul Hakim Shabazz with IndyPolitics.org and Kip Tu for the Democratic side. So, gentlemen, I want to start by saying Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. And I want to talk about the aid package that the House just passed for the victims of Superstorm Sandy. Interesting how some Hoosiers voted. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think this show may be turning into what crazy thing Republicans are doing each week.
Thank you.
I do not.
Happy New Year.
I can't understand it. I know John Hostetler voted against Katrina relief many years ago, but you know, Indiana is in the tornado alley. We have natural disasters, if not every year, every other year. It seems to me that if you're a member of Congress, you ought to keep that in mind and in the forefront of your mind when you're voting on these packages. And you know, what goes around comes around. And Todd Rokia is going to need for his district something, and the rest of the congressmen can look at him and say, why should we help you?
Philosophically, I understand where Congressman Todd Rokita and Congressman Marlon Stutzman are coming from. With $16 trillion in debt, unfortunately, the price of writing up debt is when we have emergencies, we have to make do with what we have. I don't know necessarily if this is the hill you want to die on, to make that statement when they're going to come back after the new Congress, have another vote for another, like, $15 billion or so worth of relief. Like I said, I understand where they're coming from philosophically. I don't know if this necessarily would have been the bill that I'd want to make that statement on.
There's lots of things we can cut spending on. I don't think 70% of most Americans would say, no, we need to make sure that these people who have been put out of their homes, whose businesses are closed, that we get money to them immediately so they can get started again with their lives.
Right. It's even the public relations aspect of it
It's a
doesn't
disaster.
look good.
Never a good thing.
No. All right. So the General Assembly starts tomorrow here in Indiana. So many big issues, especially with a Republican supermajority. So what is the sense that you're getting from Republicans as they head into this?
Well, I think the news last week, of course, was one senator is trying to force everybody to say the Lord's Prayer, or allowing schools to start out the morning with the Lord's Prayer. I think that, once again, I said it a few minutes ago, what crazy things are Republicans going to do this week is what this show may turn into with respect to the General Assembly as well.
You have a different take on that, Abdul?
A little bit of a different take. Having known Senator Dennis Cruz for a while, a good guy, but woefully misguided on this one. I always jokingly say, I'll go along with the Lord's Prayer with somebody named Abdul if I can have it done in Arabic and make that mandatory. Then let's see how far this type of stuff really goes. I mean, I think part of what Senate leadership and House leadership will do is occasionally let some of this stuff sort of bubble to the surface. That way they can't be accused of putting down the hammer, just so you can see what the reaction is going to be and to remind people, hey, this is why we need to stay focused on jobs, the economy, and education. So like this is a bad idea, but unfortunately, you have 150 members. They all represent different parts of Indiana, and I can assure you somebody in Dennis Cruz's district thought this was important enough that there ought to be a law. Yeah, Dennis Cruz has been a fine legislator, usually a reasoned legislator, but he's off the rails on this. I mean, we live in a pluralistic, diverse society. We have a First Amendment for a reason, and we ought to stick with it. So that's one controversial issue. There are others that we may see: the same-sex marriage amendment, education reform, marijuana legalization. Which bill do you think is going to get the most attention and then the biggest fight? I think education reform will probably be the one that probably has the most partisan fighting back and forth. Of course, with the election of Glenda Ritz and Republicans not getting the message, I think, so far on what that election means, and Abdul among them not really getting what that election was about. We'll probably see some good fights. It was about Tony Bennett is what that election was about, but Tony's not the issue anymore. Tony's going to Florida to make $300 grand a year and help them with their school reform. No, I think the big thing is really going to be the budget. Like I said, with Mike Pence wanting his tax cuts, Republican lawmakers not necessarily crazy about it. People like Kip wanting to restore money to education, Medicaid expenditures, and no one really knowing what the end of the day, what the Affordable Care Act, the President's health care plan is going to be. That's going to be the big thing. We've got $2 billion in the bank and a $500 million structural surplus, but it can all go away just like that. Do you think we're going to see an easy resolution to any of these, or are these going to be huge fights that are going to go to the end? Well, when you have a supermajority, I mean, the fights will be amongst yourselves. Well, the fights will be rhetoric-based because Democrats can't stop anything this session, and we have one-party control in the state, and I think Hoosiers are going to rue the day that they did that. I think this will be the perfect opportunity for Republicans to show that they can govern responsibly, that they can get the job done. You just got to keep the... You let the crazy stuff bubble, but you don't let it get too far. Well, we're talking about the supermajority. Is there any worry among Republicans that presenting bills that are too far right could maybe create a divide? Well, I think what you're seeing right now with the whole Cruz story sort of playing out, it is, this is what happens when you offer proposals that, on issues that have been settled for the past 50 years about prayer in school. And I think, once again, it's a reminder that, hey, if you guys offer up something that your constituents may think is a good idea, but the rest of Indiana may not, this is what happens, and I can assure you that bill will probably get nowhere. I think the Republican Party nationally and in the state should and is concerned about their image and how they're portraying themselves to the public, both here and nationally. And there are some hard conversations occurring everywhere about the image that they are portraying, which is extremists who will not compromise on anything, who are trying to ensure that their Christian view of the world is the only view that matters. And I think that's not what a lot of my Republican friends want the Republican Party to be. They want to be fiscally conservative, and that's where they want to be. But that's not the modern image of the Republican Party. The modern image of the Republican Party is no on everything. And speaking to a lot of Republicans privately, I tend to concur with Kip that they do sort of worry about about the image, but you won't be able to address it unless you let these issues sort of bubble up to the forefront and say, see, guys, this is what happens when we let this stuff, get out of control, cut it out.
And that will all start tomorrow. The fun begins tomorrow. Is it fun? Fun for you guys?
It's always fun.
All right, always
Keeps
fun.
people like me gainfully employed.
All right, which is a good thing. All right, Abdul and Kim, always fun for you guys to be here. Thank you so much. And you can stay up to date on political news at any time by following our insiders on our Capitol Watch blog. You can find the link on our webpage, theindychannel.com. Indianapolis This Week continues after the break. Today, it's a do-or-die game for the Indianapolis Colts as they try to continue this incredible season. The Colts are playing the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC wildcard round. And RTV6 Sports Director Dave First is in Baltimore, and we will have a recap from him along with all of your highlights coming up tonight on RTV6 News at 11. Then tomorrow night, it's time to kick off a new season of The Bachelor. The show starts at 8 p.m. right here on RTV6, but you don't have to watch it at home if you don't want to, because you could watch it with former contestant and son of an Indy 500 racing legend, Arie Luyendyk Jr. Luyendyk is hosting a Bachelor premiere viewing party at the Indianapolis Museum of Art in the Toby Theater. It is $20 per ticket in advance. Just head to the website on your screen. The doors open at 6:30. Then a Q&A will be opened up with Luyendyk at 7:30, followed by the premiere of this season's Bachelor. Well, that is it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jenna Coy. Have a great day.